In Portland, where police are responding to a deadly shooting near North Williams Avenue at North Stanton. This is close to Legacy Emmanuel
The
Hospital.
mayor is there right now speaking. Let's listen in.
From the neighborhood who are working really hard to put a lid on the spread of this violence. It's very important that we all take stock of the fact that this happened close enough to a playground. There could have been, this is horrible for the victim and his family, but this could have been a broader community tragedy. And I think we all have a role to play. I do in my capacity as police commissioner, but we all have a role to play in helping to stop the violence and solve conflict through other means.
Can you tell us about some of those resources you were talking about?
In terms of, I'm sorry?
You mentioned resources that you're going to provide.
Oh yeah, thank you. So on the law enforcement front, the chief recently announced the community safety enhanced efforts. That is increased police officers who are engaged directly in the follow-up and the investigation of this kind of activity. Every shooting now gets the attention it deserves. We have 24/7 response teams. There's additional analytical support. That's all on the investigative side. And through our Office of Violence Prevention, which is completely separate, we're also increasing our efforts to both prevent and intervene to stop the spread of this kind of violence.
Would you declare a state of emergency in the city?
Well, I think as far as violence goes and homicides, we're already in a state of emergency. Whether there's a formal declaration is really beside the point. We declare states of emergency when we have access to additional types of resources. This clearly is an emergency. When we have this many shootings, this many homicides, we're seeing record numbers of shooting incidents throughout the city of Portland. This is our top public safety concern. And that's why you're seeing so many people, not just the police bureau, but we're working with the county sheriff, the state police, our federal partners on the law enforcement side. But you're also seeing us work with the faith community, community groups, the Office of Violence Prevention, Multnomah County's programs around public health and intervention. We're all working together in ways we've never worked together before.
What practical work does the Office of Violence Prevention do? I saw Nike Green out here earlier. What does she do when she comes to DC?
So her job is to focus on the intervention and prevention side. So that's meeting directly with families who are impacted by gun violence. I can't speak to why she was here today, but my guess would be she probably wanted to introduce herself to the family members. I know there are at least one family member who is apparently here this afternoon. Her team and their partners go out and meet people in the hospital if there are survivors. They also have what's called the Restoration Academy. So when people are coming out of the prison system, they have an opportunity to work with people who can give them support, access to employment opportunities, access to educational opportunities, and let them know that there are other better options than going back to perhaps a less than wholesome lifestyle that they left prior to going to prison. And so that's the work that she does. And I want to be clear, that's separate from what the police bureau does. In terms of investigation and follow-up, it is very much community-based and working through our community partners to prevent this kind of activity from happening in the future.
Do you ever talk to any victims' family members?
I talk to victims' family members frequently. As recently as last week, I met with 3 different families who've been impacted specifically by gun violence. But as both the mayor and the police commissioner, that is not a pleasant duty, but it's one that I feel is an important responsibility. And when the families want to meet with me, I absolutely want to sit down and meet with them. It's very important.
What do they tell you?
Mostly they share their grief, their sense of loss. They express anger and frustration, and their hope that they and others who are in their situation will feel that justice is served, and most importantly, that other families don't have to go through what they've gone through.
Is there anything that you'd like to say to the community members of Portland, regarding the uptick of violence in the city?
That We
You've been listening
collectively
to
see
Portland
it by
Mayor
we,
Ted
I
Wheeler
mean, the City
talk about
Council,
the ongoing
Police Bureau, the
rash
Office of
and
Violence Prevention, our
epidemic of
partners
shootings
at
in
Oakland
Portland.
County, our
This one
partners at the state and
specifically
federal
at
level
Dawson
who are
Park,
working with
across
us
the street from
on this.
Legacy
We see it
Emmanuel
as
Hospital, where
reached
one
crisis
person has died.
proportion.